This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present a collection of fandoms and exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content, and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from history and loose spoilers from Cleopatra, with mentions of The Mummy, Robin Hood Men in Tights, Aladdin, King of Thieves, and 1984. For full list, please see show notes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to ACOFAE, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy, literature, and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing Cleopatra by Saara El Arifi.
And if you've been following the podcast, new or old, we have covered this author a couple times already with her trilogy. I know it's not a confirmed duology, but we have Feybound and we have Cursebound. So here we are with Cleopatra. I know we were so excited when the announcement of this book was released. Specifically, Laura, if you've also been following, you know that Egyptology is one of Laura Marie's hyper-fixations, and specifically with Nefertiti, which we do have an episode of. Obviously, we have The Mummy. We're continuing with The Mummy 2. But also Cleopatra specifically as well. And I'm so excited to kind of pick your brain. I know this is a subject that you love. Like, you also minored in world religious studies. You've gone to Egypt. You've gone to all of these places that are spoken of in this book. And I know this is somebody in history that you absolutely admire.
Okay, let's talk about the women in history that I absolutely admire. There is a handful, and they are all, I think, absolute bangers. Okay, in no particular order: Nefertiti, of course; Cleopatra, yes; Anne Boleyn, absolutely; Queen Elizabeth I, my girl; Guinevere, yes, absolutely. Those are my top 5, more or less. I can negotiate some of them. Okay. Out of all of those women, they've all done a lot of things. Cleopatra was one of the first women that I was introduced to. I will tell you, it was through cartoons. It was through cartoons. It was through Mighty Max. It was through Looney Tunes. It was through all of these things because when I say to you, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Do you think about ripping off your ear and throwing it at somebody? That's because you have seen that in a cartoon 1,000 times. That's because you've seen that in Robin Hood Men in Tights. That's because you've seen that everywhere. Okay. That is Shakespeare. That is what, like, the impact of all of these women is insane. And to know that, of course, history is written by the winners. So in Cleopatra in particular, it is just this propaganda war that she was fighting basically her entire life against this like machine of Rome. But let's back up just a second. My hyperfixation, obviously you can tell, Cleopatra, Egypt, of course, but Cleopatra specifically because she was presented to me, like I said, in cartoons, but always with these two men. Always with these two men on either side of her. If you go back and you watch Aladdin, the one with his dad, who's like so hot. Oh my God.
So hot.
Oh my God. Okay. But if you go back and watch that one, when they're doing the procession for Aladdin and Jasmine's wedding, spoiler, I guess, it goes, oh, there's Cleopatra and Caesar, and they're bringing a salad. It is. See, you're laughing at Robin Williams. It is permeated.
Robin Williams, yeah.
It is just like permeated so much into our culture that it is insane. Okay. So I promise I'm going to stop talking soon. I did a college course that was called, what was it? Queens, Goddesses, Slaves, and Whores. That was the name of the class. And
that's so cool.
And we went through mostly the Bible, but other classical like figures, and looked at them through those 4 lenses. Queen, goddesses, slaves, and whores. Especially, the women in the Bible is like very easy, but like other classical figures too. And then you had to give a report on all of that. Well, I chose Cleopatra because I said that she fit every single one of those, right? Every single one. And then I presented and I gave that. And I said, to set the scene, you really have to understand that these people were so powerful. We don't understand how powerful they were. They were stamping their faces into money. They were, fashioning themselves as the new gods. They had people believing it. They had more money than we could possibly conceive. And they were out in public for people to see. It's not like they were like hidden away. They were like out doing stuff and like parading around. So to like and set that scene, then they're setting like snobby letters to each other, and they're like fighting each other in the Senate, and they're like, rah, 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 all this arguing and all this political propaganda. And like, that's the kind of world that all of this is. And I just found it so fascinating because she is the last. Cleopatra's like the last of her line, the Ptolemaic line. She is not Egyptian. She's Greek. And that came from Alexander the Great. Like, that is so fucking insane. And then, of course, she's not just Greek, of course, but like, Macedonian. They're not Egyptian. They were like conquerors that took over, and then they did all of this stuff to assimilate into Egyptian culture. And to have all of that pressing down on Cleopatra, who ends up killing herself, spoiler, I guess, for history, killing herself before she says, like, I will not go back to Rome in triumph. I will not be in chains through the street like my sister. I will not do it. She kills herself before she's allowed to be, humiliated like that in public. Her body is not able to be abused in any way. She has to, take control of that. But before we start this, I just want to like kick this off with, again, like, history is written by the winners, right? But like, the tragedy of all of this is that Antony and Cleopatra wanted to make like Egypt, like move everything into, this is all alleged, I guess, but like move everything to Alexandria and like kind of make everything their empire and like do everything. And that's what Augustus did. Octavian came into Alexandria. He looked around at the alabaster city and went, oh, damn. He went back to Rome. He saw it was gross and crowded and brick. And he goes, raise this shit. And he made it look as much like Alexandria as he possibly could. And then he did essentially like what they wanted to. It is just it's so frustrating, right? And it's like, you can argue it's like the downfall of love and like strategy and like politics, and everything just kind of like came together at the wrong time. But really, it comes down to Dellius's betrayal. It comes down to the underestimation of Octavian, which is just like this big, big thing. Everyone just underestimated the fuck out of him. And then it just came down to like the bad, like Mark Antony's a lot of things, but he's like not a good strategist. He's a good number 2. And like, that was like, that's this like big thing. That's this big thing. Okay. I'll stop, Jess.
I'm like encaptured, and I'm sure everybody who's listening is too. Because I remember even before we started discussing this morning, when we were just like sending TikToks back and forth, there was one that you had sent me, and the way he was also, once again, this creator was telling the history. It was another one of like, you're so captivated by the storytelling. You're like, if everybody can deliver history with that much passion and excitement, I think people would be more involved. They're like, well, now this is the delivery that I want to hear about it all the time, and not just, by the PE coach in high school.
That's the thing. It is so easy to bring this story alive and to do it in a way that does not reduce Cleopatra into the whore the whore lens. She is a goddess. I mean, she is the reincarnation of Isis to her people. You know, she is the queen of her people. She is a slave to her country. And she is a whore to the people of Rome because they have to do that, right? They have to delegitimize Caesarion. They have to do that because there is no way. He is the perfect figurehead of all of this, right? And Mark Antony supports him 100%. Like he's Julius's son. Everybody knows it. You know, history will say like parentage is like whatever, but like other accounts say that like he's the spit fucking image of Julius. Like it's just fucking wild. And then to know that he was, I believe like he was fleeing to India and they cut him down. But okay. Before we get started into Saara El Arifi's book, Cleopatra, which is a unique take on the history, I do want to point out that my two favorite books about Cleopatra, one is written by a man. Can you believe that? But it's true. It's When We Were Gods, a novel of Cleopatra by Colin Faulkner. This one really drives home the otherworldliness, the divinity kind of aspect of it, the like larger than life of these people, but also the carnal, like the intimidable livers. We'll get to that. But also my second one is Pharaoh by Karen Essex. Now, specifically Pharaoh. This is volume 2 in her Cleopatra series, Cleopatra with a K, but this is Pharaoh. And I like that one because that one starts off with Mark Antony, and it kind of really focuses on Mark Antony. And I find that most things focus so much on Julius and Cleopatra and kind of glaze over Mark Antony and Cleopatra because of the debauchery that is kind of associated with their relationship. And that kind of rings true in Sarah's book too. Mark Antony has, like, if you listen to it on audio at like a 1/7 speed, he's got like an hour and a half maybe of their love story. And that's the end of the book. But, you know, to each their own. I love Mark Antony. I love seeing Cleopatra passionate and carefree and happy. And I find that a lot of discussion wants to make her unhappy. But by all accounts, she had joy, so much joy in her life. Like these things her life was not all tragedy. So I love reading things that celebrate the joy in her life. And this book does do that. And it does, this book by Saara El Arifi, Cleopatra, highlights the struggle between Cleopatra and Arsinoe, which I thought was very well done. And I loved the relationship between Cleopatra and Harmon. They were lovely, and that relationship is always depicted as, you know, eternal and strong. But here, she's got a little bit more backbone. She's got a little bit more bite, and I really love that.
Well, talking about joy, I think everything that you're saying, even with the Julius Caesar and the Mark Antony of it all, is that what we see in Saara El Arifi's book is that Cleopatra recognizes it also, because what initially was this, you know, marriage of convenience and political strategy, there was a steadfastness that Cleopatra, she's like, there was a steady calming love where her and Mark Antony, it was just like deep and passionate and just like sexy, for lack of a better word, that the passion was always there. But she also had more time with Mark Antony, and they also had a friendship that was established. And I love her. Just seconding everything that you're saying, like her relationship with Harmon, that female friendship, it came with trust. It came with like, well, my children are your children. Like we are in this together. And then when Harmon was just doing life solo towards the end, she even said, she was like, she was completely devoted to me. And it was, with all the political strategies and conversations and just like the moving parts that Cleopatra had to deal with, that she had somebody who was just as steadfast and who can see this all the different iterations that Cleopatra has gone through as a person, as a, somebody who was single, somebody in her relationship with Julius Caesar, somebody with her siblings, which was very tumultuous. I mean, she even said, if I didn't make the order to kill Arsinoe, we all know that she's the better strategist out of everyone. She's going to get to us before we get to her. And I'm not about to get made. So she kind of had to make that. And all that time, Harmon had no judgment. Her only judgment was really at the end, specifically in this book. She was, saying like, Cleopatra, you said we were all going to do this together. And Cleopatra was like, I lied. I need you to take care of my kids.
Arsinoe is such a complicated character. She's kind of like a tragic hero, the classic little sister, right? I just want to be seen. Lots of iterations. She's blonde with blue eyes. Like that's kind of, and so she's like this mirror to Cleopatra. So I really enjoy that depiction of their relationship. I enjoy the beginning of this book where Cleopatra finds out that her father has died. We know this. And she swims nude to the throne room. She sees her sister. She sits on the throne nude, causes a scene. Pothinus, fuck you. Always, always fuck you, Pothinus, in every iteration. He's the one that... But these moments... did she go to the throne room nude? No, probably not. But whatever. It's a fantastic story. Just imagine she gets onto the sand. Pharaoh's daughter. Bow lower. It is just Pharaoh. Like fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. She's 18 when all of this happens. This book hits all of the high points, like all of the like main things in Cleopatra's life. There's a few exceptions. There's a few things that aren't there. But none of it is really important. I just love the fact in general that it's 2026 and we can still talk about this. Like she was such a figure. She's real. She's a real person. Like she's so real that we're still talking about her now. It is absolutely fantastic.
Well, and before we started recording, I have to admit, and I feel like a lot of people feel this way, that you have to remind yourself that Cleopatra, like these people were real. It wasn't just like when you talk about Greek mythology and these concepts of gods. These were just so much, it just feels like talking about them feels like I'm talking about a god. There's no other way to articulate it. Every time I think about it, I go, oh, these are real people. And I had to remind myself, even through, when we're with Cleopatra and we have baby Caesarion, where he is, sitting in the Colosseum, watching the Roman battles. We see it depicted in media. And I think that sometimes there's this belief that there is like a fantastical element, but it's all very real. It all actually happened. And even when we discuss and talk about history and like Roman, what is it? What's your Roman Empire? It's just talked about theoretically, not real. Sometimes I think people forget, like, no, there is an actual empire. These people are real. To wrap my head around it, the grandeur of it all always blows my mind.
Yeah, the grandeur, the spectacle, the money, the power, the influence, just all of it is just on this level that we will never fully comprehend. And that is just stunning. It's just stunning to me. Again, like I've been to Alexandria. I've been to the library in Alexandria. Editor Sam has been there. He has had a nosebleed and has bled all over the Library of Alexandria. I have pictures. It's hilarious. But it's so special. So when we're talking, okay, so let's get into this. So the politics of this, the book kind of goes through exactly what happened. Like Pothinus is whispering into little Ptolemy, into her brother's ear. Arsinoe may or may not be spearheading all of this, and they are trying to overthrow Cleopatra. They just, they are being poisoned against him by Pothinus. Pompey comes and they cut off his fucking head, which is just like barbaric to Caesar. Like he's related. It was the last, connection to his daughter, Julia. It's this whole thing. So that is happening. Arsinoe and Cleopatra have to attend the Apis Bull who has been killed, and they go down river to do that. All of this is standard. All of this happened. Like, all of this is documented, written down. She did do this. They did go. Like, they took the boat. They stopped at these places. They talked to these people. Like, it is all there. So Cleopatra goes, she chooses the bull. And here's the uniqueness of this book is that our author has given every member of the Ptolemy line a supernatural gift bestowed by one of the pantheon of the Egyptian gods, which is like awesome. In theory, I'll talk about it at the end, but this supernatural element is a mark on your skin that indicates which god has taken you under their wing, and you are given a gift. And Cleopatra has been taken by Isis, but her gift has not manifested yet. Everybody else has a gift. Specifically, Arsinoe has bonded to Thoth, so she has an ibis that she can speak to and does her bidding. And her brother has bonded with Cerberus, and he is able to breathe underwater, which is awful. And everybody else has a gift as well. So that is the supernatural element here. Is it necessarily needed? I don't know. We'll talk about it at the end. It leaves me with a sad feeling in my belly. But we'll talk about that. But specifically in this book, Arsinoe uses her ibis to spy on Cleopatra over and over and over again. And that part of it, the sister envy, she says, I just want to be seen. She's the one, Arsinoe, who plants the rumors, about Cleopatra. Again, I will stop talking after this. Again, I'm saying again that history is written by the winners, Octavian, Plutarch, all of this. There is an Arab tradition where Cleopatra was the scholar and the healer. And that's where this version comes from. And that is probably much more reliable than what is commonly known. That she was, we know that she was gifted with languages. We know that she was a politician. We know that she was a strategist. We know that she was smart. We know that and then this other side of her, that she was a scholar, a healer, a chemist, like all of these things, philosopher. That part of her specifically comes from Arab scholars, and I choose to believe them because, like, why? What did they have? Why? Yeah, they had nothing to gain. And, talking that mad shit. That's part of it too. So Cleopatra manufactures her gift from Isis and makes herself a healer. And I love that, because I do kind of feel like that rings true to Cleopatra's personality, well, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Well, and that was something that I actually wasn't aware of. So, understanding the background here more in this book, where she has those instances where she'll get lost in town and go out hidden and nobody recognizes her, and she heals when she wants to. And that's something that both Caesar and Mark Antony point out, this is, nobody just is out with people. That's just that you as a leader are what is she like? I am Egypt. That is something that she says throughout this book is I am her and she is me. We are one. And she truly believes, as we know also, that she is the best for her people. It's not going to be her brother. It's not going to be her sister. They want the title, but she lives it. She truly is what's best for Egypt at this time. It's so interesting to know that there's this other history that I hadn't, it wasn't just this author's take on, hey, I want to add this element to Cleopatra. She is her people and she wants truly what's best for them.
Yeah, in real life, she's the only one that learned Egyptian out of her line. Of course, her court was mostly Greeks and I think Jewish people, honestly. And then some Egyptians, the common people were, she spoke all that. She knew if you were talking shit in all them languages. She's just that girl. I just love her. Remember, she's 18 when all of this happens. In this book specifically, when Cleopatra and Arsinoe are coming back from the bull selection, and remember, Cleopatra has no divine. She's just like, that bull, that one, divine guidance, that one. She's making it up as she goes. I love it. I love it. With suspicion that the bull was murdered, Cleopatra finds out on the barge going back that Arsinoe and her brother and Pothinus are fucking in on it. They're in on it, and there's gonna be a fucking reckoning. Now, the history is like a little different on this. She flees to Syria, and then she raises an army, and she's stuck outside the gates with her Syrian the author says that there were some liberties taken. But boiling all of this down is that when Cleopatra comes back from the bull selection, Julius Caesar is posted up in her bedroom, and she is shrewd enough to say, that's an ally. I need an ally. That's an ally. He was my dad's ally. I can play on that. I can get into the palace. I need help, though. I can get to my rooms. I need help. Apollodorus is always there. It's always Apollodorus. The history tells us it's Apollodorus. Like, can you believe it? Like, I just cannot get over. We know this. We know okay, anyway, sorry. Was it a carpet? Maybe, it was something. It was something. He did something, and he got her into the palace. That's what we know. It is most commonly a carpet. Xena did it in a carpet when Xena portrayed herself as Cleopatra. Like, it's, so she gets in there and she talks to Julius. What does she do? We don't know. We don't know. Every iteration is conversation. Quick conversation between them is essentially what everybody says happened. Now, Jessica Marie, can you imagine what that must be like? Sneaking into your own palace, meeting this like person of like legend, this person that can save you. You've got to get him on your side. You know, he's kind of a slut. He's a little bit older, but then you start talking to him, and it's like, fast. It's fast and it's quick and it's like fireworks. Like, that feeling had to have been insane.
And also at this time, I think something that you and I don't forget, but I think society, whenever we talk about certain things, we're like, it was a time and it was a place. She is having these conversations. She's being very quick. She's being a political strategist. She knows what's going to work in her favor in a society that shits on women constantly. I mean, even the conversations of, like you said, well, they have to give her some reason to delegitimize. Is that a word?
Yes.
Thank you. Her son with Caesar and all of her relationships to just make her lesser, because God forbid a woman is this smart and savvy and uses it in her favor. You were annoyed with something I said. I was like,
I was absolutely not annoyed with something that you said. I was looking up dates as you were talking, Jessica Marie, because you were talking about a time and a place. And I just want to make this so clear for everybody. When we are talking about this is before Jesus.
I love that. I think people have to remember that.
This is
BCE. Every chapter, it was like, chapter this, here's the year BCE.
This is significantly before Jesus. Do you want to know who ordered the census that we found out about Jesus? And that's why Mary's got to go to the inn. You know who ordered that census? Augustus, Octavian. So put that hat on. That is where we are. Like Cleopatra, Mark Antony, Julius Caesar, this is before Jesus. Like, it is so important to keep that in mind. Like, he is not a thought in our head. Like that, all of that bullshit, none of that has any anything here. We are in the old gods, the old traditions, the old festivals, like the old beliefs, like all of that. I just think that's so important. So to what you're saying, Jessica Marie, that mindset of then we have this powerful woman and this powerful man that sees this powerful woman and goes, bet. Absolutely.
Immediately, because even one of the lines she says is, he looked to me as a queen first and like an equal before he considered me his lover.
Absolutely. And
that alone feels very rare.
Rare. And then everything that happens with Julius, the Alexandrian Wars, that's what happens after this, of course. What happens at night, did they fuck? Maybe they did. Eventually they have a child. But, she shows up at breakfast the next day, Ptolemy is like Arsinoe starts screaming, like, they start fleeing. Pothinus flees, at the start of the war, it's a siege. They try to starve him out. All of these politics, all of this, it happened. He stayed. There's a lot to be said about like Cleopatra trapped these men. She used her. These were the most powerful men in the world. They did not have to be there. She was not like, these are real people. They could have, he chose to stay, solidify her as queen, establish her, make sure that there's like political debt between them, do the power. He did all of that. This legend where he was shipwrecked, right? And he swam the length of the ocean with one hand raised up so that the plans stay dry. That is legendary. Did he do that? Maybe, but that story has permeated pop culture. It is just like, and he did that for her. Like, it is important to put into perspective without a man in your ear screaming that she's a whore.
And the thing is, it was the people who were screaming that. Because these two men, arguably the most powerful men at this time, did not think that. They are like, they knew a baddie when they saw one. And, Mark Antony clocked it earlier. He's like, I've always loved you. Like, and she's like, no, you didn't. He's like, I might not have known it, but you captivated me. And Julius Caesar, and I think there was just like more... There was respect because this is a woman who knew her shit and she wasn't here to like play damsel. She was like, we both can, this can be a mutually beneficial thing. And I love even later on, Cleopatra would say, oh, I could totally want to fuck with the Romans right now, but I can't. Because I'm involved, just because she was emotionally upset. So you can't tell people like, oh, women are so emotional. Really? We're calculating before we're emotional. And I think people sleep on that.
Cleopatra was a very capable ruler. Like, the hospitals, the currency, the trade routes, all of this stuff. Did she kill a lot of people? Sure. Whatever. Everybody killed a lot of people back then. Get over it. That's just what it was. The men were killing everybody. Yeah. So like, she has to do, women have to do double.
If boys do it.
Yeah. Well, women have to do twice as much work anyway. So, that just means twice as much murder.
Twice as much work for half the credit. So, whatever. But again, going back to Julius Caesar, like he chose to do all of this stuff for her. He established her as queen. He had a child with her. He had cesarean with her. And by all accounts, acknowledged him like within, publicly. Until it came to the will. But even then, because Cleopatra's like, the Senate got to him. Like the Senate killed. So like, who's to say the Senate didn't touch this?
Yeah.
Like
There's a lot to be said about tampering with the will and what happened with the will, and did his wife have the will? Did they break in the Vestal Virgins? Like, because the same thing happened with Mark Antony too. So there's a lot to be said about the actual will and what he did or didn't do. We will never know. It's just one of those things. But he did. But there are things that are irrefutable. In this book, in history, they had a child together. They had a relationship. She went to Rome several times. She stayed in his house. Like, sorry.
And the wife was aware. Like, they were aware of each other. That's the other thing. Like, they were aware of each other. They kind of like
Calpurnia, like they knew they knew. Cleopatra brought Caesarion. In some iterations, she made him publicly acknowledge him. In this one, she doesn't. But he's a doting father. Like he builds the gold statue to Cleopatra and puts it in his family temple and says Venus and with the child. Like, he did all of that. All of that. It is crazy to me that men will look you in the eye and say, well, she was a witch. That pussy just too good. Are you kidding? Like, there was something, right?
And
like,
to devalue a woman down to that too.
It's just nuts. Like, she was the queen of the most Pharaoh of the most powerful country in the world at that time. Like, it was just the grain. Like, she was the granaries of the. It's just anyway. The Ides of March are a thing because of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar permeates so much of our modern day life, but on his own, but yet Cleopatra is tied to him. She, very rarely is she like celebrated on her own in like modern pop culture. It is like, so that's why we're like championing this book. Like, anything about Cleopatra standing on her own, she does not need to be tied to these men. But it is irrefutable that she is in Rome when Caesar is murdered, the Ides of March. That, to me, that's insane. We know that. That's fact. She was there. They were all there. Can you imagine what that must be like? Because in this book too, it's like, there's something wrong. Like, I know there's something, like, I feel it. And then kind of describing it too, like especially in this book too, like they say, like, Julius, wanted dignity. Dignity above everything. And then to be cut down like this was the ultimate, humiliation. It's just.
And I mean, we know that again, like, this isn't, what did we say? Is it spoilers for the book? No, yes, but it's spoilers for history. Like, her grief in this also is going to Mark Antony and saying, like, well, where the hell were you? You're his best friend. You were his second in command. Where were you? Because at this point, like, Julius Caesar is like the first love of her life. Like, it is not just like a marriage of convenience. I mean, when I say marriage, like, it is what happened. And he was like, I was led away. They knew I was going to fuck shit up if I was there. You should know that too. And she's like Catherine in Wuthering Heights, just like weeping. Like, I don't have a will to live anymore.
And rightly so, because also too, like, the danger, immediate danger. They're going to come for her.
Like, we need to get you out of here. We don't know. We haven't seen the will. And then when they see the will, they're like, okay, now you got to go. I don't know what's happening, but you are not safe here and you need to get on a boat.
So something that happens before Julius is murdered is they have the triumphs. We have to talk about the triumphs. The triumphs are Julius's victories that are shown with everybody, paraded through the streets of Rome. And he has a gift for Cleopatra, and that is Arsinoe in chains. But she sways the crowd to her side, and Caesar has to spare her. And, Arsinoe lives to fight another day. That is documented. It is well known that happened. Okay. Something that didn't make it into the book that I really enjoy specifically is when Cleopatra attended the Lupercalia festival, which is the Roman like fertility kind of blessing festival where women like bare their breasts and get whipped by people, and the more, the harsher the whipping, the more fertile you'll get and all this. Well, during this festival, this is real life. This didn't happen in the book, but this is just real life. We're blending. During this festival, Mark Antony has a crown. And he comes and he presents Caesar with a crown and says, Caesar, the Roman people wish for you to be their king. They wish for you to be their king. And Caesar kind of like clocks the crowd, and he denies it, right? He goes, no, it's republic. And then, you know, they go further on, and Mark Antony comes again. It's just like Jesus. It's so weird how they stole all anyway. And he comes again, and he says, you know, Caesar, the people want you to be the king. Will you be the king of Rome? And he says no. And again, so he asked him 3 times. 3 times he asked Caesar to be the king of Rome. The people demanded, and 3 times Julius says no. And this was done to kind of like really a litmus test to see if the people would accept him. And it backfires on him, because that is when the senators are kind of like, hey, he wants to be king. We gotta wrap this shit up, right? And another little detail on this that I will do before we move on is that when Julius is in these triumphs and he is leading all of them, he's in the chariots, right? When he's doing this for parts of it, there's a charioteer behind him whispering in his ear constantly, remember that you will die. Remember that all of this is temporary. Remember that you will die. Because in Rome, it is really important that like your ego stay checked. Like you are, you know, the gods are above you. Like you need to stay like kind of humble, even though all of this is happening. So I like that little detail of this man just being like, fuck you, dude. You're going to fucking die. So don't let this all go to your fucking head. Like I just love that little detail. Okay. I will close that tab. Moving on.
You're closing tabs and I'm opening up them so I can like look into the Lupercalia festival with Cleopatra later. So I was like, tab open.
So the I think I'm gonna give this a shot. All right. So I love Julius Caesar. I love him. I love that he, you know, the ransom wasn't enough when he was captured by pirates. I love that he made fun of them. I love that he, you know, did he cry? All of this stuff. I just love him. I love that in some iterations that he was like obsessed with Alexander, and that kind of bleeds over into Antony, and I'll bring that up later. It is just wonderful stuff. But I love more Mark Antony. He is the playful one. Dionysus. I just love him. And Mark Antony, as I said in the beginning, kind of gets overlooked, I feel like, a lot of times, or he gets kind of you know, he's dumbed down, he's a drunk, he's a wastrel, you know. But what he was a capable commander and an orator, and Shakespeare was so captivated by Plutarch and all of this that he wrote the famous thing. So I'm going to attempt it, if you do not mind, Jessica Marie.
Never. I'm so thrilled.
I will attempt. All right. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you that Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here, under the leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men. I come to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious. I mean, Brutus is an honorable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general's coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? And when the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff, yet Brutus says that he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on Lupercal I thrice presented him with a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious. And sure, he is an honorable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? Oh, judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till come back to me. Shakespeare. Imagine just the torch lit with the crowd back. They're calling for him. He's giving this speech. Fabulous. Fabulous. Mark Antony was so many things. You cannot say he was not charismatic. You cannot say he couldn't capture a crowd. You can't say he couldn't sway. He's one of those people where, like, don't let them talk.
Yes.
Don't let them
Because
talk.
I mean, I was going to say, like, the way he captivated people, just like, yeah, whatever you say. Yes, please.
Yes. Like, so what happens? What happens in this book? Cleopatra, Octavian, they go back to Egypt. You know, Cleopatra is very angry at Mark Antony. Antony stays in Rome and forms the triumvirate with what's his name with the L, and Octavian, and the three of them have their war, and they hunt down Brutus and Cassius and everybody that was involved in Caesar's murder. During this time, Cleopatra sends troops to aid Mark Antony in this, and those troops are betrayed by their commander, and they go fight for Brutus, and Cleopatra's like, well, fuck. And that is what Antony uses to lure Cleopatra into their first meeting since Caesar had died. And he persists and he persists and he persists and he persists. And then it's one of those cat and mouse situations.
And she knows it too. She fades into it, which is what I love. And even Harmon's like, I don't you have this other thing? Especially at the beginning. She's like, it's part of our game. And then even when they're toying, she's like, no, you actually asked this other person. What was the name that it was like the alias that she was going Selene. She's like, you asked Selene. You did not ask moi. And so I'm out of here. Selene, that's a different time. So, but their playfulness is, she needed the lightheartedness after, like, you know, you even said that we're so used to seeing the strife that she's gone through, that there are joyous parts of her history that she got to celebrate that we don't focus on as much, or that we see portrayed.
I mean, she had 3 children with Mark Antony. They were together longer than she was with Caesar. They were together like a significant portion of her life. I just feel like it just gets glossed over because it's tragic. All of it is it's tragic. It never works. Everything like Mark Antony doesn't take Octavian seriously, and then it just falls apart. It just falls apart, and it's so hard to watch this empire fall apart because they're so happy. You know, she's got to go to Tarsus. She goes to Tarsus dressed as Isis, you know, Venus, you know, on the boat with the oars. Like, it's legendary. Like, that shit happened. You know, she meets him, the pearl, the dissolving the pearl in vinegar famously, like, that is just, you know, here it's used as a cure-all because people are really starting to question if she has a healing gift or if it's manufactured. So she and Harmon here concoct a ruse to prove her divinity, and that she dissolves the pearl in vinegar and uses that as a cure-all. In other iterations, she uses it as a party trick. You know, it's all sorts of things. But you know, all of this is happening in Tarsus, you know, and then she lures him home to Alexandria, and he stays in Alexandria for a while. They have their children. He goes back to Rome. Fulvia, he's married this whole time to Fulvia. Fulvia is raising a rebellion against Octavian. He goes back to Fulvia to kind of do it. Fulvia dies. The twins are born. It's just their life from here on out is pulling towards Antioch and this defeat with the navy at Antioch. And that is just the end. And something that isn't necessarily a detail here in Antioch that is kind of a detail in history is that they were starving. Antony says, like, come to Antioch. We need you, bring your ships, bring your men. But he and his I believe his Persian expedition was also unsuccessful. But they were like eating tree bark. They had nothing. Like they were starving. And, you know, she comes with the boats and the Navy and they're going to attack, you know, they're in the swamps. It's like this whole thing. They do sacrifice the boats so that Cleopatra can flee. It's a horrible image propaganda hit to her, but there was no other option. They were going to die there in the swamps of Antioch in the Navy if they couldn't get free. Antony follows after. It's just this, it's like the dominoes keep falling and they're doomed. And it's like from the moment that Caesar is killed, they are doomed. And all happiness, this is kind of where I'm going at the end too, but like all happiness is like stolen because it's all rushing towards this like double suicide, famously double suicide. But it's so dramatic. They're real people. It is just so wonderful. History is so much fun.
History. I mean, I've said this to you many times. You make history so cool. And I love we get to talk about the things. I mean, obviously we're talking about the things we love, and the things we love happen to be really cool. But you make it for, and I'm going to assume, I'm not just speaking for myself, but going to assume the people who are listening feel the same way, because they're like, wait, I didn't know that. Wait, like, or I think the other thing is a lot of us, the way we're raised, the way we're taught, everything is you need to learn this in X amount of time. And you might know all of the little nuances and details, but now it's, okay, now I got to remember this other sort of thing. So that becomes something on the wayside unless it becomes a hyper-fixation or unless it becomes something prominent in your life. And then that's what, like, this has always been a subject and a person and a time that you've never strayed away from. And you're like, give me more, because I know that there are news sites specifically geared towards Egyptology. And that's like one of your daily, your pulse points, current events that you're checking in with. And not everybody does that. So when something else is unearthed, you're like, yes, give me more. What else can we learn? Because then you're constantly also refreshing yourself. You're like, wait, I do remember that name. I don't remember it recently. Why do I remember it? And you're constantly going back, and not everybody does.
It's just so fun. I mean, it's so fun. It's real. You know, it's just wonderful. So something else that's real that I do want to point out, that in this book, because everybody has divine gifts, Ptolemy, Cleopatra's younger brother, has the ability to breathe underwater. We said that earlier. Now, his death is like history accurate. He does drown in his armor, but it is specifically horrifying in this book because the angle that it's taken is that he's able to breathe underwater. So he is at the bottom of the ocean, completely trapped in his golden armor, which if you've seen the first season of Fallout, like, it's very similar to that. And it is just horrifying to know he's sitting on the bottom of the ocean. He's unable to get out of this gold prison that he's screwed into. Like, there's no way that he can get out. And he's just there. And Cleopatra has to, like, deal with this level of guilt of, like, well, how does his gift sustain him? Will it keep him alive, or is it just he can breathe under there? Did he starve? And that's kind of answered later when Cleopatra is out fishing with Antony and her children, and she pulls up his gold breastplate and he is not in it. So that stands to reason that he was eaten by the fishes, which is, again, just this horrifying situation that Cleopatra has to constantly have in the back of her mind, and is this like weird extra burden that she has to carry with this fantastical element.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I agree with you. I was like, I don't know where we go from there. I agree with you. But in honor, what I do like is to honor her brother, is, you know, whether it's to say to honor him or to carry on the name, is that she names her third child with Mark Antony after her brother.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I mean, I know it's a family name.
It's a family name.
But
yeah. It is left out in this book a bit of the debauchery that is associated with Antony. You know, that he was a complete and utter drunk, that he was a whoremonger, that he was just utterly unfaithful, that he humiliated Cleopatra with his actions. There are versions where Cleopatra was right there with him. And their society of the intimidable livers, I believe that's how it is famous. They roamed around the city of Alexandria at night, drinking all night with poets and philosophers and actresses because they knew that they were going to die. And it was this like celebration of life before the end. And it was all the nobles of Alexandria. That kind of part of it was left out of this book version of Cleopatra. And I don't know exactly how I feel about it, but I do feel like this version is more of her as a mother and as, her friendship with Harmon and their relationship, and less this. It does say that she turns away from opulence and for a while, and Antony like re-sparks that in her. But it's just a different version. Everybody's allowed to have a different version of Cleopatra.
I feel like it's strayed away from her, but they don't shy. I feel like there's enough references with Mark Antony and his likeness to Dionysus that's not strayed upon, but I didn't know that she was kind of hand in hand with him. But I do like the focus on the motherhood, and I think it's great. And I don't want to say that her priority shifted, because they didn't, because she even says, I am a mother, but I'm not motherly. Like I'm a commander. And that was also something that was a likeness that she had with Fulvia, who was Mark Antony's wife. So clearly he has a type. She was like, look, we didn't, we acknowledge each other. We didn't go out of our way to say hi or anything. But I also see that there could have been a friendship, because it was always about, women don't need men. We can handle the shit ourselves.
The passion of Mark Antony, right? He's very passionate. No one can say, people say that Cleopatra used Caesar and like entrapped Caesar. They say that Cleopatra seduced Mark Antony. But everybody kind of agrees that Mark Antony was right where he wanted to be. Everybody is kind of just like, and I love this version of Mark Antony where he is just constantly declaring his love for Cleopatra. More of that. But he's begging. He's on his knees. He's screaming their marriage through this house, through the city,
through the gods,
to the gods, to the Senate, to everybody. Like I'll tell everybody, I changed my will. I told you, I did it in front of you. I sent it off. Like he does, again, just like Caesar. He does all of the things. He does the big things. He does the small things. He acknowledges his children. He marries her. The donations of Alexandria. He says, all of my victories are your victories. Everything I do is for you, for Egypt, for our children. Rome, it belongs to Caesarion. The Caesarion is the rightful ruler of Rome. He will bring together our two countries. Like he never shies away from his children, from Cleopatra, from his dedication to them. Like he falls on his sword out of desperation to be with her. It is just this tragedy. But again, people huff and puff about, Caesar, but nobody really huffs and puffs about Antony. He was right where he wanted to be.
You couldn't make either of them do anything that they didn't want to do. They were the most powerful people during that time.
And then Octavian is just slowly becoming the most powerful person in the world, which is just like so frustrating, because it isn't until like Dellius really just fucks them so badly by taking all of the plans, and like that really just turns the tide. But at the end of this book, right? Cleopatra sends Harmon off with their children and says, like, take care of our children. Like, you need to leave us, make sure they're safe. Antony goes off to like rally their troops in another country and bring them back. Octavian and all of his troops are coming. Cleopatra sees them. She goes into her tomb, right? Like she's going to end it all. And, here comes Antony. There are some iterations where he climbs over the top to die in her arms. There's a lot of legend about him dying in her arms. So like, just It has to it's one of those things that has to happen. Like, it's just this tragedy that he throws himself on his sword. His like servants drag him. He crawls across them, to her. There's blood everywhere. He dies in her arms, declaring his love. We could have done it. Like,
men don't love like they used to.
No. And just imagine, like, the empire is burning all around you. There's war and soldiers, and like the harbor is full. Like, it's dark. Like, the emotion, the passion, your lover, the father of your children is dying in front of you. Like, I cannot imagine this really happened. This really happened. Like, so then in this book specifically, Cleopatra uses pins with wolfsbane and nightshade on there to kill herself. Harmon comes. She crawls in through the cistern so that she's not alone. I will be with you in this life. In the next, I'll be with you always. Our friendship is more than everything. Harmon dies first. Cleopatra dies second and wakes up with Isis.
In this iteration.
She wakes up with Isis. And Isis explains to Cleopatra that she is the last of her line. So she's the last one to be cursed, and she will be cursed forever in perpetuity. In perpetuity, she will be cursed forever. Her curse will be resurrection, which is Isis's specialty. She will never be able to die and pass on into the other world. All of her family, all of her friends, her children, her loves will all be waiting for her and never get to be reunited with her. Now, in this version, Cleopatra did live out one of her lives with her youngest son, Ptolemy Philadelphus, I believe, with Mark Antony. She lived out her life with him because they were able to escape, and they lived in, anonymously. She was able to see Cleopatra Selene as the wife, or as the queen before she died. That's true. That happened, man. That's real. Caesarion was executed. Her brother, I believe, died of illness too. Some iterations, she was murdered in Rome, But in this one, Cleopatra just stays alive. She stays alive as the ultimate punishment. And I don't love it. I kind of liken it to Sailor Moon, and how Sailor Moon realizes that the struggle against evil is eternal, and therefore she must eternally fight, and therefore she will always choose to be reborn and begin the cycle to be who she is, because evil never stops. And so that is her eternity of constant rebirth and constant fighting and never having rest. And I just feel like women deserve rest.
Well, I mean, that's one of the conversations we've always had with Throne of Glass, is like, let Aelin rest. When the conversation is, people are like, bring her back. We're like, enough.
Yeah. I just feel that way. Let women rest. And Cleopatra says in this epilogue that, like, she's happy, she's at peace, she's lived so many lives, and through all of these lives, she finally had time, which she didn't have in her mortal life. And through all of this time, she was finally able to know herself and live for herself and live authentically. Awesome. She still is stuck here. She doesn't like accept her true self and then move on. She's still stuck here.
Well, I mean, and it's the line at the beginning of the book and at the end, bookends and all that, where she goes, everybody knows the story of how I died, but nobody knows how I live. This essentially is the historical life that we're, discussing. That is the only life she lived. And, it's all, oh, I've made peace, but did you? Because this is the only life that you keep reliving and you keep staying in. And she's like, oh, well, I've taken like other lovers since, but you're still at the restaurant, like this is going to be it for you forever. Cause she even when it comes to talking about her kids, these are her only kids. In her various reincarnations, she's like, there's a way you can avoid not having kids. And I made sure that was the case. I never had kids after my kids.
Yeah. Let women rest. Let women be happy. especially in this world specifically where it is proven that the gods exist. So therefore the afterlife must exist. Therefore, you know, it's all real. Therefore, they're all just waiting forever and watching her. And it's just like this tragedy on top of this like real tragedy that it doesn't necessarily sit with me well, but that could be that I just love her so much. And she's just like been my hyper-fixation and like a symbol of strength for me for so long that I don't like thinking of her constantly suffering.
No, and that's fair. With all of that being said then, and I know we loosely brought it up at the beginning of the episode, do you think that this book was needed? Like what was this? What did this book add that wasn't already out there?
Accessibility. This book added accessibility. This put Cleopatra back into the modern conversation in a book world that wasn't a biography. So important. So important. This has a fantastical element. This is a whole other generation of readers that can pick this up and be like, how much of this is true? And then go on a you know, a Wikipedia rabbit hole. I think that is so important. The spark of interest that this could light in somebody could really, you know, fan the flame of some new discovery. And that is really important because I don't like biographies, and I feel, you know, even though these people are real and it's so wonderful, I like learning about them through historical fiction and then going back and fact checking. That is more fun to me than sitting down and reading dates and times and some man telling me about what happened, you know? So I think that having this accessible and marketing this for like a romantasy, a YA, whatever this is perfect. I think it is going to look, they yassified the American Girl dolls. So everything is going to change. These historical figures can get little tweaks in them, but the history doesn't change. The history, I mean, we did just cover 1984. The history is not going to change. But I think if you have more people, the more people that are interested, that are learning about it is, you know, more people that you will have to convince it didn't happen if you rewrite history.
And on that note, feel free to follow us on Instagram. We're at ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. Feel free to follow us on YouTube and rate us 5 stars on any of your listening platforms. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.